Unless you don't go outside or have no friends. Just kidding. You've probably used Venmo. You've probably used Zelle or Cash App, the ability to send money to your friends, especially after you split a bill, go to a restaurant, do an activity together. One person pays for it because it's easier. Here's some types of behavior, Venmo related behavior, that I absolutely despise in order and ranking of least pissed off to you are probably not a good quality person. I know that Venmo payment is a very minor action. You might argue, why are you even making a video about this? I actually disagree. I think that minor action tells a lot about that person. So if you have people around you that do these things, I would highly consider telling them, confronting them, telling them you are wrong. You need to fix this behavior, or perhaps cutting those people off because they probably will do similarly scaled things for other, even more important things, even if it's a couple bucks. Number one, not paying right away. If someone else paid the bill, they aren't paying for you. They are splitting the bill. It's as if you guys all contributed cash for a single bill. It's just that they happen to have the final medium in which the transfer occurred. Pay right away. You need to be paying on the spot. People forget or wait till requested. That's not the responsibility of the person that paid for it. That person is doing you a favor in that exact moment for paying up front, even if it's seconds. Pay right away. I think that's the number one key. But here, I say this first because there could be circumstances your internet could not be working. I don't think paying immediately right away where you sit around, perhaps you want to move on to the next location and do a final check at the end of the day. Maybe you're hanging out all day, so there's multiple transactions. Understood. Paying relatively quick is quite important. I think it says a lot about the mentality of that person. The reverse of that is the person who paid not requesting until way later. I think this is just courtesy. You want to be fresh in the mind. It's both of a trust sense and also just a feeling of needing to pay for something weeks or months later. I've had times where people have requested for something relatively minor months later. And of course, I still owe that person and I need to pay that person. But oftentimes it's me asking that person over and over and over again, how much do I owe you? How much do I owe you? I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later. Months later, the activity, they tell you, hey, this is how much you owe me. It doesn't feel good to pay for something that happened a while back. It's important to pay for something as soon as it is accomplished or achieved. Next, two random things. Speaking of rounding down. I really don't understand this, but I've seen this probably the most. People owe you money through Venmo and they round down. If they owe you 34.56, they give you 34. You tell them you owe me 34.56 and they give you 34. I don't know if their reasoning is they got credit card points, so the 56 cents is just out the window. If someone tells you you owe them 34.56, you pay them 34.56. In fact, most of the people that I know that are well-mannered, and I think they believe that the Venmo money ultimately comes back, typically rounds up when they pay. If it's 34.56, they typically pay 35. That, I think it's to each their own. There's no social responsibility to do it. You seem kind of cool doing it, but I mean, it's still 43 cents that you are losing. Regardless, rounding down, I just don't understand. You are effectively stealing money. It doesn't matter how little it is. Pay the exact amount. There's no reason not to. You can even do fractions of a dollar in Venmo, if I understand correctly. The reverse is rounding up when requesting money, especially when you do utilities or you're the one that paid for a pretty large bill. I've seen people round up significant amounts because they don't think the other side is thinking about it. In most cases, because I don't want to cause a ruckus, I don't say, hey, by the way, I think this is rounded up. That's just social contract. But and again, it's schemy. What are you trying to gain? A couple of dollars because you happen to pay for it? Do the right thing. Ask for the right amount. This is a mid-tier issue because I haven't seen this much, but in concept and in the few times I've experienced it, it just makes me mad. Rejecting what you requested and then giving another request for the difference. So what I mean by that is, let's say I paid for something that was $10 and they paid for something that was $12 throughout the day. When I request the $10, pay the $10. I made that request on purpose just for math, even if it's both ways. Unless you need that Venmo money less than 3 days and you need the $2 difference now. I hate when I ask for $10, they reject it and they request for $2 back because that's the difference. I'm not an idiot. Most people are not idiots, at least in this sense. There's a reason why they want to keep track of what that one-way transaction is and what the one-way back transaction later was. If you wanted to run that way, then you should be taking account of a book of all the transactions between all friends and then just pay it off when you're dead. Why even bother to do it that day? Just accept the request, pay what was requested, and then request it again. Haven't seen this much, but still a bothersome annoyance. Only sending when asked again. Now we're getting into slightly dangerous territory of people that I would consider not cutting out, but actively not doing this ever again. And typically people who do this have other issues in their life. Like, I've never really seen an exception. Of course, generalization, but people who start doing the things that I'm about to explain, it's not just Venmo. They have far bigger other problems that this is just a microcosm example of what they're about to do. If we have to ask you multiple times to pay something back, initially, sure, you might have a long day, hang out all day, you forget, you say tomorrow to be courteous, hey, send me this to this amount. I've seen people ignore the text. I've seen people reply yes, not do it the moment they say yes because they just don't want to. It's a click of a button. If something takes you less than 15 seconds to do it, you should do it then. Of course, you might have a situation. You might not have money in that account right away. Especially for close friends, I am understanding that resort. I would push back and be a bit harsh and say, if you don't have money, then you should probably not be spending it. Definitely not be spending it on through someone else's money, but you shouldn't need multiple reminders to send over something that takes fractions of a second to do. This is where I start getting worried, start getting concerned, start thinking about, what is this person? I think, great break, important note, for those of you that know me personally, money is not that big to me. I'm not very money hungry. In fact, I spend, not carelessly, but pretty generously. I like buying for friends a lot. I think this is just important to me because these actions say a lot about who you are as a person. I think it's when you are facing what people might think are tedious things, or why do you even care about that? That tells a lot about the everyday person's life. Next tier, and I think this jumps even higher because the people that you remind ultimately end up paying, is doing 1 divided by n, or splitting it perfectly equally and suggesting that even though there were large differences in what you did. So you might go to a restaurant and you just bought a appetizer, but they got a full course meal, especially if you're in larger groups and it's just annoying to do the math. It's not that hard to do the math. You could do it pretty easily on Excel. There's apps to do it. I don't think it's that hard to do the math, to do weighted averages. Now I sound super stingy and to the point and anal maybe, but you have experiences. You're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. People that have, especially it's always the people that have done the most, the people that have or should be paying the most, but because they can get away with it through Venmo, I don't even know if they're thinking about it. Maybe it's a subconscious thing because they're always used to doing this. Don't divide equally if it's not equal. Cents to a dollar, sure. But ease, I do think there is a threshold amount where doing the math on Excel is just not worth the trouble. There's times where you are 20% of the bill and it's more than 5 people and you suggest dividing by 5. Stop doing that. That's a wrong action. These next two, I think, are cutoff worthy or sitting down and saying, you are wrong. Sending just the principal. This applies to going to restaurants. I've had people take the final check or based on what they've seen in the menu, suggest that they only pay for the menu item price. So no tip, no tax. Have you seen tip and tax these days? This, I think, is the level of mentality where you are purposely, this is intentional territory. Until now, you could have been somewhat for efficiency or you could have forgotten. I don't think there's any level of insane malintent. With this, there is malintent. You are trying to get away with something that you know for a fact, unless you are a newborn baby that has never gone to a restaurant before. There's additional costs to these things. But for whatever reason, you are saying, this is not something that I'm responsible for. Pay your tip, pay your taxes. This has to be that weighted average. Finally, this is the crown jewel of Venmo. This is the Earthilla or whatever Disney, Thanos, Kang the Conqueror equivalent of Venmo behavior that I fail to understand. People that pay first without actually knowing what the amount is, typically obviously less or being requested, just sending money, saying, hey, this is what I owe you. Always less than what it is before. That's not how a transaction works. You need to know exactly what you owe and send the exact amount. I think I got heated over something that you might think is very minuscule. Many people might think just get over with it as a couple bucks. I think, again, in order to assess a person, in order to not judge, but to understand who they are and see if they are someone that you want as a positive influence or even a neutral influence in their life, there's not many crazy big events that you encounter with people unless they're your significant other or your family. it's from everyday minor things that you get to understand who they are, what they are. I think Venmo is a great, phenomenal actually example of the psychology behind how people act. I somewhat encourage you to look around, see the next time you use Venmo, and see how people act, and think about and project upon how they are for other things. As always, thank you guys for watching. My Venmo is @thebrian. Don't send me money. And I will see you guys next time. Let's go.